Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to this week's edition of the Friday Club, brought to you courtesy of Campus 24 and in association with the lovely people at AMKIS. My name's Dominic Moon, Senior Education Consultant at Metropolis Education, and I'm what appears to be your resident host now. Now, we've been speaking with admissions and marketing staff from all over the UK, getting a sense of the issues and the strategies that they are currently deploying in the hope that you get to hear that little gem or that little nugget that will help you in your day-to-day life. Will hopefully entertain you a little as well. Today's guest is always smiling, clearly loves life, but has one of those efficient minds and rarely wastes his words on hyperbole, whichever one you want to call it. So please, everyone, welcome John Burnett from Leighton Park. Now, John was born in Edinburgh, not his fault. I went to boys' school called Daniel Stewart's and Melville College. I'm guessing that's Stewart's Melville College now, right?
Yeah, I don't know. It gets called different things. It also sort of merged with the girls' school, unfortunately, after I left.
That's right. He took a gap year to do a ski season. That's quite popular with our people in our sector. In Canada, this one, and then travelled throughout the US and Central America. Following that, he went to King's College London to study United States and Latin American Studies, and then worked for an educational charity called Education Action International, mostly because he liked the name. So that's as good a reason as any, I guess. He did the JET program for a year, where he spent a year in Japan, pretending to be an English teacher, and then got a Skillshare placement to set up a honey industry in Swaziland. So if you don't know what that is, it's a program that identifies skill gaps in less economically developed countries, recruits someone from the UK to do the job for 2 years, during which time they identify and train up a local person to take over when they leave. He eventually came back and worked at UCL, overseeing their post-grad recruitment, did a secondment as head of digital comms for 2 years, and continued with the post-grad recruitment and took on Europe as well. Finally, he saw sense and applied to Leighton Park School, where he has now been there for 6 years. Welcome, John. How are you?
Yeah, doing very well. Interesting to hear my life and a little potted history. Thanks for that.
Did it make you chuckle? I've thought, I've missed something out. Surely I've done more than that.
Yeah, I feel like I need to up my game a little bit.
Yeah. Now, mate, we always harp on about, the number of jobs and the recruitment cycles that's currently affecting admissions and marketing at the moment. But we are seeing and have seen in the last decade an increase of people join from the university sectors, and I have to say quite successfully. Obviously, yourself doing really well, cutting your way. The transition between university and the independent schools sort of sector, are there big differences? Is it easy? Is it for us from who aren't been in the university sector? Is it as easy as that? Have you guaranteed success?
I don't think you're guaranteed success at all. I think it's really quite different, but you are getting a lot of the right skills, I suppose. One of the great things about working at a big university like UCL is I was part of like a huge team with 100 marketing, recruitment, PR, branding, all the rest of it, people on one floor. So I was able to get to know some of those areas and learn from some of the specialists in those areas. And I suppose that helped me along the way. And as you said as well, I did a few different jobs for the university. So head of digital communications was super useful, and I use a lot of what I learned there now in terms of trying to get the website right, social media strategy, and so much of what we do now is digital. So that was a really handy thing to have done. But then at the end, I was responsible for 15,000 students joining the university. Now at Leighton Park, it's like 140. So the role's so different. It's going from like macro, high level, looking down at the overall strategy and supporting different bits of the university, to literally doing anything and everything that's needed on a given day. And I think what's really nice is you get to know the families coming in. I got to know zero of the students really at UCL, unless we were doing some research, and then I get to meet some of them that way, but really very little contact, and of course some events. We did this one event in Beijing that was I did every year, which was a total nightmare because it was 9 till 5, and it was like speed dating with prospective PhD students. So these guys were super clever, had really, really niche interests in, like, I don't know, spectral nanochemistry, something. And sometimes their English wasn't fantastic. And so you were sat there with like a 10-minute session trying to understand what they were saying, both in terms of their English and in terms of like the really specific academic interests, and trying to help them with wanting to come to the university. So after 3 days in a row of that, my brain was just completely destroyed. But the role now, I really like the change, and I think it's been, in a way, it's I suppose you get a lot of the exposure and experience that maybe people from agencies do, because you're working across different bits and you're working with specialists in different areas. And so when you come into a school role, you've got quite a breadth of knowledge that you're able to apply into a different role.
It's funny, you don't hear many people leaving our sector to go into universities, because that conveyor belt, that impersonal nature, does that you sort of mean?
No, I think that is right. And I think that working for a big university as well, like in London, it was quite a young person's game. Like
they're all young person's games these days.
Yeah, I'm feeling that.
Okay, now one of the things that you said to me, which I wrote down, was you learned you can sort of thank UCL a lot for you're all on one floor, so you managed to pick a lot of skills up. Have you replicated that back at Leighton? Have you got the whole admissions, marketing, and whoever all in it together, the sharing of skills and knowledge, and I've just spoken to such and such? Is that very much continued?
Yeah, it has. And because I'm in my own office, and that was new for me because it was all open plan, but the door is always open. I can hear everything that's going on in the team. And I think that's really important, working in a pretty small department. Like there's 7 of us all together. And so you got to know what everyone's doing, and it's all quite fast paced. And so, I think it's really important that you do have that proximity when sitting together. And we're actually looking to move to different offices where we'll be even more in the same room. So I think that is important. But what you don't get, I suppose, is those people with the specialist knowledge in their areas. So like at UCL, I was sat next to the person responsible for the brand of UCL, which was really cool, and really great experience for me to be able to sit next to that person. And I suppose we all try to be up on our skills in different areas, but you don't have that kind of specialist knowledge in a small.
Yeah, that's interesting. So have you purposely decided to move offices to be more centralized together, or is that just like an architectural thing? Somebody said we need to use this office now, John, when we're moving you around. How's that come about?
It's a little bit of both, but it is also so that we are all in one space. It's also just much nicer offices. So it's because we're moving our library, so some of those library rooms are becoming available.
Right. Okay. Now tell me. So you had all these sort of different departments around you. In terms of universities versus independent schools, I always feel, I don't know whether you agree, that it's a little bit of a crystal ball. The universities are sort of like not light years ahead, but certainly a decade ahead in terms of either process, how they go about, and perhaps arguably the markets that they tend to be fishing in. Is there any sort of things that you brought from the universities in terms of process, a faster pace, a sort of more direct way of thinking, a different way of thinking? Because I'm not having to go at anybody at your school before you got there, but most people go into a school and go, oh my goodness, it's there, everybody's asleep at the wheel.
I think some of the things that, I think every university is different, and I think there are some universities that are a little bit dragging their heels and others that are really forward looking, and the same with schools, like some that are maybe more traditional and wheeling out the same approach that they've been doing for the last 20 years, and other schools that have completely changed everything. I think from UCL, the sort of constant looking to adapt and update is something that I've brought with me, and seeing how we can use technology. So for instance, we've changed everything in admissions, and we're now managing 300% increase in inquiries, but with the same number of staff. And we've only been able to do that because we've grabbed the opportunities of the technology to make things work a little bit better.
Yeah.
I think as well, something that I learned at UCL was the need to build in research along the way, even if just in a quite a light touch way. Some of the tools that I used on the digital side, for instance, like Hotjar and CrazyEgg and Optimal Workshop, just give you like little approaches to just check that what you're doing is the right thing, and to inform any future development as well. So I think it's about being ready to change, but doing it in a way where you're basing it on evidence. And I feel like that's something that was kind of ingrained into me at UCL. And something that I really enjoyed there was we organized these big participatory design workshops. So when we were looking at redoing the prospectus, for instance, we'd get in some of the academics, we'd get in some of the students, we'd get in some prospective students as well. And we'd all sit in a room and look at different aspects of it and come up with a design through that kind of process together, which was a really fun but also really effective way of doing it. And we did win a HEIST award, higher education award for that particular example. And so I think that's something that I learned. I think another thing that universities are really good at generally is working together. And I think that that's something that independent schools are making some steps along the journey of. And I think you've done a great job on that, of trying to bring people together. And I think in the last 3 years, a lot has progressed there. I think there's opportunities to do more. And I think especially, you know, we're not just competing against each other, we're competing against Canada, Australia, Switzerland. And so we need to grow the UK share. And I think we need to work together to do that.
Thanks, mate. Very kind for the first little shout out I've had back at me. Right on. Okay, but people out there are thinking, Hotjar, CrazyEgg, Optimal Workshop. Can you just expand? I have no idea what you're talking about, quite frankly.
Okay, so Hotjar and CrazyEgg are a little bit like Google Analytics, but they enable you to see things more visually. So you can see where people are tracking and clicking on your website. You can monitor the journeys that people are going on. So with your web design, if you've thought about what are the key things that people need to do on my website, then you can kind of track, is it working the way I'm expecting it working, or are people doing it in a completely different way? And I need to adapt that. Optimal Workshop's got a bunch of different tools in it. One that's really good is working out the information architecture of your website. So like the navigation structure of your website. Right. If somebody is trying to complete a task on your website, is it intuitive for them if they're coming on one page of how to get there through your navigation structure? So that's one thing you can do on there. It's called tree sorting.
I'm sorry, I'm getting personal now, but do you try and get visitors to your site, to the admissions section of your site far quicker? Because I always think that admissions departments and the way the page looks is always quite rubbish. You go to an admissions page and it says fill in the form if you want to inquire. There's no pictures of who the admissions people are, them and their dogs, a bio about them, so you can really fall in love with them. And it's also difficult to find it often. And international admissions, they're buried in the back of the site map somewhere.
Yeah. So you mean in terms of universities? I think
yeah. Sorry.
In terms of universities, I think it's very impersonal, and it kind of has to be when you're dealing with so many applications. It can't so much be, here's the head of admissions and their dog Bertie. You know, it's a different thing, and I guess it's necessarily a bit more corporate than independent schools. The real key with UCL was about because people aren't really they're looking for specific degrees, especially on the postgrad. So they're looking at, this is what I'm interested in, who teaches it, and who has the specialism to get me where I want to get to. And so it's about the the SEO of that, and about having course profiles so that they're really well optimized and people are landing on them, and then you've got the application at the bottom of that. So the wider picture isn't always so important, and that is something that I've tried to bring to Leighton Park. So we've got a course finder, even though, you know, we offer IB, A-level, GCSE, so we've got different courses, but we've got a course profile for each page that's picked up in Google searches. So if people are looking for A-level history or IB French or whatever, then that will come up, that course profile will come up. And so it's a way of bringing people into your website, but also just a tool so that people can check and see what you offer.
Well, pay attention, everybody, because 300% increase in inquiries is no mean feat. So I'm guessing a lot of those skills and that sort of ability to create evidence-based action, I suppose, is critical, rather than just, oh, we've always done it this way, John, or my gut feel says we'll do that.
or somebody in the schools had a great idea, so we're going to do it.
Yeah. Please try and steer clear of all of those things. Now, listen, everybody, because John, although he's got this 300% increase in inquiries, you would think, well, he must be, one of these big schools. But a Quaker school in Reading, they say find your niche to get rich. Is it too simple to say that? I mean, do you kind of just find yourself harping on about excellent pastoral care? How do you distinguish yourself? As you say, you've got competition around you, quite a fierce bit of competition, plus the London, plus the Southwest guys aren't going to let you just have it your own way, right? What's that process about? How do you make your little empire shine?
Yeah, I think for us, it has been really important to define who we are and what we are, because we've got great competitors around us. And so I think every school has the challenge of trying to bottle, because schools are quite hard to communicate. It's quite nuanced in a school. But I think it's really important to try and answer the question, why is it important that this school exists? What can we do that isn't being done by another school down the road, or even another school in the country? And the Quaker values at Leighton Park are a really important part of that. When I arrived at the school, the Q word was, not so much spoken, and there was a real fear that it would put people off. It's like, what is this crazy cult? So I think what's been important to us is to put it. We did a huge consultation internally, 6,000 bits of research coming into it, with all staff, students, parents, all feeding into this about what is Leighton Park, and the Quaker values came out right at the top of that. And so on the back of that, we've decided to put it right front and center. But I think with something like, values, and, there's a risk that you become overly worthy and flowery and nebulous. And so I think it's been really important to think about, okay, Quaker values, but what are the benefits for the students from that? And so in terms of our messaging and positioning, we're leading on it through the benefits for the students. And out of that big consultation as well at the school, we really thought about how can we give those Quaker values purpose and currency in the experience of our students and in the life of the school, so that they're not just words that are up on a wall somewhere, but that they are, when people ask about, oh, so how's that influence life in the school, everyone in the school can say, aha, wow, we have this, and this. So for example, the last 2 years running, we've won a national award for outstanding local community involvement. So where our students are getting out and supporting the community around the school, that's Quaker values in action. And also the pupil personal development. So in terms of having a really strong program about our students really succeeding as themselves, rather than just focusing in on the academics. So really bringing that side of things to life as well, about the other side of the coin, as people talk about.
Yeah, I think a lot of people listening will think, oh yeah, I can see how that would work for my school, having the purpose and the currency resonated with me, because it's all very well you're doing this, but what's it mean to everybody else? And I like the question, why is it important that this school exists? And between us, and if nobody else is listening, I wonder how many schools ask themselves that and go, you know what, I have no clue why it exists. And I think that's a really perhaps scary question for people to ask.
I think it is. And I mean, I think the other side of it is, yeah, as a marketing department, how do you bottle the school? And I think it's important that it's not just the marketing department that think about that, because the brand lives within the people in the school. And so if you need everybody to buy into it, and everybody's going to buy into it if they've had a voice in shaping it. And so that's why we looked at that huge consultation where everyone can feed in to really try and define and bottle what the school is all about.
If somebody's sitting there thinking, oh, I should do that, what's the time frame to do this huge consultation? It's really terrifying to think you've got to go through the process, right?
Well, I think the research phase was a whole term of different workshops and bringing people together and capturing all the different information. But then on the back of that, there was a group working together on what then the positioning is, what the messages are, how that influences the curriculum, the co-curricular offer within the school. Because once you've got that bottled identity, then you kind of need to work backwards and say, well, if that's what we're here for, then we need to change this and change this and change this, and try and streamline things so that everything that you're doing within the school matches that overall.
And now you're loud and proud, right? Loud and proud. Okay, let's go back to you a little bit. So you're admissions and marketing director. Is that the title?
Yes.
What's the title you've got now?
Director of Marketing Admissions.
Director of Marketing Admissions. Okay, let's go the other way around, of course, dealer's choice. 50-50, how you split? What's your day-to-day breakdown like?
I'd say it's more thirds. So a third school leadership as part of the senior leadership team, third marketing, third admissions. But 1 week could be 100% on one, and so it changes depending where we are in the cycle and what's going on at that particular time. But I think the leadership angle is really important, because as I was saying with that branding, it's the whole school thing. So that aligning and shaping, it's really important, I think, that somebody as director of marketing's front and center of that. And also about having that influence and voice in the school. So that I think is important for me to try and do my job well. I do sometimes think, oh, I wish I could just focus on this and this, because with all of, with those three hats, it can be quite a lot sometimes. And there's always things that you feel like you're not doing as well as you want to. But then I suppose that's about working with your team to try and make sure that as a team, you're covering everything that needs to be covered. And I think the great thing about it is, every day is completely different and no day is boring. And also, I never have that Sunday night dread of, what are we going to do tomorrow? So
the Sunday night feeling, if you're getting that, get out, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Can I just ask, can you imagine a scenario where somebody in your shoes wasn't on SMT?
I'd say that's a very bad idea for the school.
I'm sticking up for those who are listening and thinking, I can't believe we're not on SMT. You've got to get in there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think particularly at the moment, and I think for me, it's like, if you look at all the challenges that are facing schools right now, it is doing well in the current environment isn't so much, or it's not only about how good your marketing is. Marketing is kind of like the bridge between you and the customer and the prospective families. But to do well in the current climate, it has to be about your product, how good it is, that you're creating real value for families, And you can't do that if you just sat in the marketing team over here somewhere. You need to be right in the middle and saying, looking at every single bit of what you're offering in the school and saying, does this fit with our brand? Are we fulfilling on our brand promise? And that you're part of that discussion with any curriculum review. You're part of the discussion with trips and everything. Every aspect of the school needs to shape up and be aligned. So I think any school that doesn't have somebody doing that on the leadership team should do.
They live amongst us. Now, one other question. You're breaking your job into 3 different parts. Do you see, we've been in the trenches for 3 years now, let's be honest, okay? And we've always talked when we've talked previously about most people are stuck in operational mode, get the admissions in, doing the follow-ups, all that kind of stuff. Do you have that? And do you see that if you get a chance to talk about marketing strategy and think ahead for years even, do you feel like you're winning that battle?
So I'd break it down a little bit. I think the school vision and strategy needs to think far ahead, and you need to be thinking about how you're developing your product and new facilities and all of that. You need to be looking 20 years, whatever, ahead on that. I think in terms of marketing and admissions, I don't look so far ahead, because everything changes so quickly in terms of the technology, the markets, the opportunities, the new challenges, the changing shape of the competitor mix. So I think that for me, I look really 1 year ahead, and each year I'll be thinking, in terms of the targets that I have and the challenges that have come in, and thinking, right, what do we need to focus on this year? I think looking 5 years ahead in terms of marketing doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because maybe you can have that plan, you can be looking that far ahead, but you're going to have to come back and look at it again every year anyway.
Yeah, what did the Marines say? You plan early, you plan twice, I think.
Yeah.
It might be a little sense of that. So
there we go, Quaker schools and Marines doing it the same way.
That's a juxtaposition, or whatever you want to call it. So we've got these sort of little speed bumps on our horizon, as you know, in terms of VAT, TPS, salary increases. Schools are putting their fees up. In terms of big projects and that kind of thing, you're looking ahead for your yearly marketing thing? Are you sticking, or you're twisting? Are you just you're happy to do a brand new website or rebrand because you want to? Is there what's your sort of feeling, and what are you doing?
So I think the most important thing with all of these challenges is looking at the product and making sure that the product is really good. I think there's always a temptation to say, right, we need to have a new website, or we need a new flagship school video. But if you haven't really focused on the product and your positioning, then those things are only going to have so much value, because you're not being really clear and distinctive on your message and the story that you're telling as a school. So I think the starting point is the product, and I think now is the time to really be working with colleagues to look at what your offer is and say, is this what our prospective families want? Is it what our current families want? Are there opportunities to improve here? Should we be cutting this and investing in this? And looking at that side of things, I think things are moving, of course, more and more digital, and I think the opportunities of digital transformation are there. So we're going to have to try and have a more personalized experience, and you can only really do that if you've freed up time from what you were spending time on before, or if you're adding lots more staff. So I think looking at your processes, and are they as efficient and well organized as they can be? Are they working for families? And having that little tinkering in your teams to make sure that your resources in the right place.
Sounds like he's got some time to spare. Hand it out to the rest of us, John, please, if you would. Okay, that's very interesting. Sorry. I'm not saying you have got any time or extra staff. Okay. Just to recap, so he called them customers, everybody, just which I thought is always nice to hear. Purpose and currency, focus on the product and polishing that. Keep evolving, loud and proud. And why is it important? Blimey, that this schools exists. Can you imagine? Okay. John, we're coming to the end. Got my quick fire round. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, good man. Right. So please tell us, who is your hero?
Oh no. I don't know, Nelson Mandela, maybe? Okay.
If you could live anywhere?
Ooh, I've always fancied Costa Rica. But I do live in Winchester and I love Winchester, so.
Okay, fair enough. What's your biggest fear?
Oh, something horrible happening to my kids.
God, now you've just taken us all with you. God, blimey. Let's go a bit more upbeat. Beach or snow?
Oh, both. But if I had to choose, snow.
We're going to have making you choose. Yes, this is the name of the game. What's your go-to karaoke song?
Oh, I'm terrible at singing. Maybe something by the Beatles because they're pretty easy to sing. I did spend that year in Japan, so I got a lot of practice at singing badly.
Yeah. Also, the beauty of the Beatles songs is they're all like 1 minute 80 or something. 1 minute 80, 2 minutes. That's it. Have you got a nickname? I'm tempted to jump in here.
Penguin.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I was called Jogger because I didn't like wearing jeans. I always wore tracksuit bottoms, or in Scotland, jogger bottoms. So I was called Jogger Bottom, and my family still call me Jogs.
Jogs. We know, everybody, please call him Jogs when you see him at Alfie or BBSN, wherever you go. If you went back in time, where would you go?
Oh, I don't know, like the sort of 1920s looked like a good time with all the Art Deco and dancing, and yeah, looked good fun then.
I'm sure you'd look good in those spats. Is it spats? I don't know. Maybe they're doing the Charleston. What is the one thing you'll never do again? Friday Club, he says.
I don't know, when I was doing my ski season, I went in the half pipe, thought I was a bit better than I was on my snowboard, tried to do something far beyond me and ended up tearing muscles in my neck. So maybe that.
Yeah, so yeah, something where you remember some painful moment. Okay, fair enough. Right. John, pleasure. Some really good nuggets, mate. That's what we look for in all this stuff. That's hopefully everybody out there has learned something new or got something that they can now take back to their office. Plus, entertaining, huge fun. Thank you very much, John Burnett from Leighton Park. Everybody, that's us finished for this week. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another fabulous guest, hopefully. Thanks, John. Thanks, everybody.